One thing you don't want to see is a pile of broken parts next to your motorcycle. This is not a review of not so much a particular part, but about the company. That company is Outback Motortek. That company is Outback Motortek. So my relationship, well, it's not really a relationship. I guess if you're a customer, it's a relationship. Started about 10 years ago. At that time, I just purchased a 2016 Triumph Tiger XCX. And what I saw was a YouTube video of this guy taking his bike by the handlebars and throwing it on the ground and saying, our stuff is the best built, best stuff out there on the market. He was pretty proud of his stuff, and that was pretty impressive. I saw a bunch of stuff on the that was available for the Tiger, and at that time, African Twin was just coming out. This was the new generation of Tiger. That's a different story, but a lot of things were coming out, and I think both of them may have been in the same video. However, that's kind of irrelevant. But this guy was taking these bikes and just pitching them on the ground, saying that, you know, this is our high bars are, not indestructible, but, you know, good quality. Our skid plates are good quality. So for that 2016 XCX, I purchased the high bars, or the upper bars, and the upper radiator or engine guard bars, and I purchased the skid plate all as a package. Now, before we go any further into this, for the people that are have the short attention span and want to jump out of this video right away, the company itself is a good company. I really think they're a good company, and they manufacture a decent product, and that's what they try to do. Back in 2016, you dealt directly with Outback Motortek. I ordered directly off of their website, and I think you still can today. However, they seem to have, and I'll go into this later, they have some type of relationship, I think, with Motortek in the United States to distribute their product. So like I said, I ordered the, I think it was a package deal, and that's what I ended up doing with this bike too. I ordered a package deal, and it was not an easy install, and I get it. I mean, you can't be perfect, and it was really, you had to kind of jiggle it around. I had a V-Strom that I had different manufacturers for, and that was the same kind of condition with these, engine guard bars and stuff like that for adventure motorcycles. Some of them you have to kind of wiggle in there. Same thing with, a stressed, the engine has a stressed member. Some of those things have to have quirky little bolts and stuff like that. My problem with it was the instructions were completely off. If I wasn't experienced at doing this, I would have had a really difficult time getting it to install. There wasn't a whole lot of videos out there on them, but I got it to install, but I had to end up buying a whole bunch of new hardware. The hardware with it was too short, didn't fit in the holes and things. But I moved on. It was, 20 bucks worth of bolts and stuff like that. Not a big deal. I moved on. However, moving down the road about 3,000 or 4,000 miles, the brackets for the skid plate broke, completely snapped off. And I called, I ordered. The guy said, hey, we're a small company. We want to get this out to you. We really appreciate it. And I had mentioned, because I was taking a Utah trip, hey, I'm a content creator. I really need to get this stuff quickly. I'm taking a trip. It was probably 2 weeks from then or something like that. I need to get it out. And the guy was like, hey man, if you would, we're going to get this stuff to you right away. And, just, don't give us a bad review or whatever. And I said, no worries. I just need the stuff so I can go make my video and keep my channel going. And it arrived prior to the trip, and like I said, no big deal. Over the course of the life of that bike, I had no more issues with this stuff. I only probably kept it for another, 6,000 or 7,000 miles, traded it in on this bike. Now, don't get me wrong. I've had other stuff that's been complete junk. So I know you have failures. These were fixable. I probably could have had them locally welded, but I wanted something that wasn't welded and would break again. I was hoping that the skid plate mounts were fixed and and that kind of thing. Like I said, it was only a short amount of mileage later that I got rid of the bike and purchased this one. I did the same thing with this one. I bought the package deal. I got the uppers, I got the skid plate, and you'll notice that the skid plate is different now. It's a silver one from KTM. And I bought the center stand. Mounting of the skid plate was pretty easy. The upper engine guards were a little fiddly, but not too bad. All the hardware worked and stuff like that. The instructions were meh, but I got it to work and was pretty happy with the results. I mean, matching KTM orange, I mean, it might be a tenth of a shade off or something like that if you really look close, but the average person isn't even going to notice a difference. That was pretty key. The skid plate was really deep and large. It was probably on the larger than the Black Dog one, and pretty heavy gauge material for the skid plate. The broken part down there, as you can see, seemed to be all right quality. It was kind of wiggly, and the springs were kind of there's springs that retract it, if you don't know what a center stand does, but there's springs that bring it back up when you pop the bike off the center stand. Those were pretty weak. I ended up having to add some additional springs on there to keep it up, especially when riding off-road. It would slap the bottom of the bike. Well, about 5,000 miles into owning the Outback Motortek skid plate, I heard this horrible noise. I didn't know if it sounded like a broken valve or what it was, but man, it sounded like the engine just went to junk, and I'm like freaking out. Get back to the house, and I'm running the bike, and it's not really doing it too much. So it was, you know, you think if you revved it, even, you know, sitting still, I mean, was it a transmission problem or what? And as I'm going around, I see these little hairline fractures on one side of the bike where the skid plate mounts broke off. On this one, this occurred 3 times. Every 5,000 miles, I had it for about 15,000 miles. On the 4th time, the tabs actually broke off because you had mounting brackets, and then you had tabs on the skid plate. The tabs on the skid plate broke off that time, so into the dumpster it went. The first 3 times I did get hardware. It was tougher to do. You didn't talk directly to the company. I had to go through their US distributor. I believe that, like I said, was Motortek, and it took a very long time to get the new brackets, the bolts, and all that stuff. So that was dissatisfying, but they did back it up. That's what I'm saying. This is a good company. I think they make a decent product. However, I've had several failures, and it was time for me to walk away. I ended up getting the KTM version of the skid plate, which seems to be pretty stout for itself. I was a little worried about the factory skid plate, but it was what was available. The 1090 they don't make anymore, and they've changed a 1290 frame up, I think, a couple years ago. So parts are starting to get a little bit more scarce for these bikes. That was a skid plate, and a few months after that debacle, I had an issue with my front tire. I bent the rim on it, and I desperately needed to keep the front end up and keep the bike on 3 points of contact so that it wouldn't fall over. Getting home from that trip at the worst possible time ever, that happened. If you can see, the leg broke off the center stand when I got home when I'm trying to lift the bike. I don't know. I don't know if that's a metallurgical problem or what, but I've never, in 50 years of riding, almost 50 years of riding, had a center stand break on me. So that was kind of strike 5, 6, 7, I don't know, but I was pretty irritated at that point. I'm not an abusive rider. I'm not a Starbucks only, convenience store only rider. I ride the bike like it should be ridden. I ride it off-road mostly. I ride long distances on pavement to ride long distances on dirt. All these components should hold up to the level of use that I put it through. I wouldn't think you would have failures every 5,000 miles. I wouldn't think that you would have a center stand brake really ever. There's no evidence of anything being hit or anything like that. And that brake is a fracture. So it's not like it was bent and broken. It was just a fracture in the metal. So in conclusion, I think they make a fair product. They're affordable, but you're going to have to think about your uses of their stuff. And again, I want to reiterate, they are a good company. They stand behind their product. They're pretty proud of their product, and I think they should be proud of their company. However, if you are using your adventure motorcycle as it was intended, you may want to look elsewhere for your protective equipment. That's all I got to say. Like I said, it's a good company. I'm a little suspect of the product. So I appreciate you watching. Thanks for watching. Adios.